My guess is that if there are any sanctions, they will be focused on the individuals involved, because basically, there are these, they know who was involved in terms of who flew to Turkey. So if they can personalize it as opposed to make it less about the country, which is clearly the direction that they're moving, why was it that multinationals stayed away from Russia? It was sort of, they were told not to go. Right there, and there was you didn't want to defy the U.S. administration. Some still did, and when with those sanctions, there was a clear effort to isolate Putin, and they thought there was hope of actually leading to some sort of change in Russia. Saudi is a clear and present ally, right, forever, and we saw this with 9/11, right? 19 hijackers. Any discussion of doing anything against Saudi? No, you move on to other countries. So this is not unprecedented in terms of the U.S. tolerance. I would really, in the end, you stick with your allies, and alliances are much more important than individual news flow during that period. Relationships have plenty of ups and downs. This is a positive relationship between the U.S. and Saudi, without a doubt.
But have they gone beyond the pale with some of their activities now?
Well, the test, I think the first test before broad sanctions will be just the Senate on its own refusing to approve arms sales. That's the easiest way to send a message, and my guess is if it manifests itself in any way, it'll come there as opposed to any broader sanctions.
But when you say about your allies, I mean, there are certain allies you have for long-term strategic reasons. There are others you have because they provide the world with energy and you don't want to see it blow up there. And the fallout from 1973 upset everybody in the world economy for a long time afterwards, and a lot of memories about that as well. It's a marriage of convenience, isn't it, between Saudi and the United States?
Well, in one sense, yes, but I don't think it's the Saudi threat associated with oil that's the reason why the U.S. is responding this way. They are huge strategic allies when it comes to security cooperation in the Middle East. And the U.S., is very, very focused on the fight against terror and protecting Israel, and Saudi plays into both of those stories extremely well.
But let's just wargame this on the, if I can use that unfortunate expression, on the oil price, because as Steve rightly brings up, there is this shadow of 1973 that sits over everything. I mean, the reality is, if you are trying to think about how you strategically position to make money out of this story and any impact on the energy markets, should you be taking long positions? Should you be thinking about a rapid move up in prices if there is a policy error, or indeed the diplomatic talk turns more hostile?
I would suggest the opposite, because I think the play was, with Iran being pushed out of the market, and that's just happening very soon, of course, that puts upward pressure on oil prices, very fair. If anything, the Saudis owe the U.S. something enormous right now. And one thing that I think Trump would like to see is a lot more production. So I think there'll be much more likely to be a glut from the Saudis in the near term than anything else. If this falls apart and it becomes a confrontational, which it's not, then you're in a situation where what the market was pricing in the last couple of days manifests itself. I think it'll be the exact opposite now because of Saudi guilt.
But what about Iran? I mean, before this story became this terrible story that it is, we were fixated on Iran,
yes,
and a decision around increased sanctions on it. That just has slipped out of the narrative at the moment. But it remains there as a backstop, doesn't it, for oil at $80 a barrel?
No, totally. But you should assume that's going to happen. And that's one of the reasons, if we go back to the Turkish, if we compare the Saudi relationship versus the Turkish relationships, one of the reasons why there were sanctions against Turkey is Turkey was using a bargaining chip in a public way against the U.S. And that didn't play well with the U.S. at all. And so you got the resulting sanctions. But also you had the underlying negotiations regarding don't buy Iranian oil, presumably. We haven't heard much about this, but I would really, really be surprised if the market isn't right, assuming that Iranian oil is largely going to disappear from the market. And we should see that quite soon. But the market, I think, was already focused on that reality.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now, to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.